It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, November 21st, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is excited to talk about the Phantoms who had a heck of a weekend.
But what about Thanksgiving? Are we going to talk about that?
Absolutely. We'll do that too, all on today's show.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. And we are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. We can be found for free over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, we did learn that Felix Sandstrom cleared waivers yesterday, which is a good thing. Looks like the Flyers' gamble on the timing of all that paid off.
It did, and I also think the lack of any more news about Hockey Canada probably played into it too. I think it was both those things. So yeah, I mean, it's good for Sandstrom if he plays.
Right. Well, I think that's absolutely going to happen. I mean, presuming he's healthy, right?
Right, because then Mayer, I guess, goes down to the Reading Royals again.
Yeah. Well, it does create a little bit of a logjam there because we have Parker Gahagan, who is also there as well. So, and it could mean that Sandstrom and Cal Petersen are the Phantoms' two goaltenders there. So you have to ask the question, is that a good thing for those two players individually? Is it a good thing for the Phantoms overall? I tend to lean toward yes, because it gives Cal Petersen a chance to kind of reclaim his reputation a little bit and get more games in than he would have with the Flyers and, give him some potential opportunities, maybe get his trade value where it needs to be. And I also think that Felix Sandstrom just needs to play. And if he wants to prove himself and create a job for himself, I think that's good too. And I think those are quality goaltenders for the Phantoms.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much Peterson will get, even if he does well in the AHL. You might be talking about a 7th-round pick. But with Sandstrom, it'll be an interesting thing because he's on a 1-year deal, but he is important to the organization because he has been a really good soldier. He's bounced up and down. He's performed really at every level pretty well. And so I might be willing to hold on to him longer. So that's why I want to see him get in the playing time because I feel like he's worth it.
Yeah, I think so too. And, you can never have too many developing goaltenders, in my opinion. I think that, you never know if somebody's going to get hurt, and to have somebody who's ready to go at the minor league level is extremely important. And, I think that it'll be a good battle between the two of them as well with Lehigh Valley.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with a good battle.
Turning our attention to Thanksgiving, as we mentioned at the top of the show, just a quick programming note for us. We will not be having a show on Thursday, the Thanksgiving holiday. We will absolutely have a show tomorrow previewing the matchup against the Isles, and then we'll have our mailbag, and then we'll be back recording Friday morning to recap the game against the Islanders and preview the afternoon matchup against the Rangers. So that is where we will be this week. Speaking of that holiday and that Friday game, it brings up the question, is it better for the Flyers to have their Thanksgiving holiday at home, play that Black Friday game in the afternoon from home, or better, like from a mental perspective, like the Rangers have, and have to regroup and then travel to that game?
Yeah, it's it's interesting because I think it's good for both teams to have the holiday. But I do think there's a change. Like, I think with the Flyers players, they can watch that 8:30 game and not really have to worry about it, because I doubt there'll be a morning skate, and they'll have to be a rink at a certain time, but they won't have a 3-hour bus ride or train ride precluding, the game. And so I think when you get the Rangers standpoint, yes, they can have Thanksgiving, but they can't stay up too late, because they know they've got to meet probably around, I don't know, let's say it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and then they got to take the train in, probably even earlier, maybe 7 o'clock. They have to take the Amtrak in, let's say. And so, yeah, I feel like they're back to business quicker than the Flyers. And the Flyers do have some sleepy afternoon games, as you know.
Yeah, I was sort of thinking about, how many of the Flyers actually care a lot about Thanksgiving. Like, how many of them are Canadian that already had their Thanksgiving that they missed because of, early season
Right.
action, or, they're from Europe or whatever. We do have a fair amount of Americans on the team. So there is that, but I just don't think it's as big of an issue. Like, I don't think that is any different than having any afternoon game where you've slept at home the night before
Well, I think
for
you
them.
also have to. The one thing we don't know, the X factor is, like, which team has the better home cooks, because then food poisoning comes in. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, Russ. I just don't think they're having a big giant meal for the most part
Oh no, they're going to
on
have a big giant meal.
Thanksgiving Day.
No, they're going to have it, because their family's going to have it. Like,
Some of them will and some won't. That's all I'm saying.
okay, so you're trying to tell me that some American hockey player on either one of these teams, let's say Chris Kreider, you tell me he's going to be watching calories on Thanksgiving Day? Are you telling me that's going to happen? Are you really?
I don't know. I honestly could not tell you.
Are you are you telling me that some of the Flyers American players are not going to partake all the way? Like, Nick Seeler's not going to eat a lot of turkey. Come on, he's going to eat a lot of turkey. He is.
I assume there will be some like team group dinners where people who don't have
Yeah, for the
families
single
in
guys.
town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with no
That
attachments.
yeah, I'm sure there'll be some people that will, join other festivities and,
And people
like Cam
eat.
York just saw his family out west.
Yeah,
And
it's an
so,
eating holiday. It's an eating holiday. Everybody puts on stretch pants. Like, this is the thing.
well, I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's a good question to ask. Maybe we can ask them
I'll ask them
later
in the
in
locker
the
room,
week.
have any of them put on stretch pants before Thanksgiving dinner? Somebody will answer yes.
All right. I will hold you to that to get that answer. Um, speaking of the Rangers though, and that afternoon game, as we've gotten closer, we did talk about this on the show yesterday that some people look at the standings and around Thanksgiving and say, if you're in a playoff position at Thanksgiving, it is more likely that you will make the playoffs and you won't. Now, the Flyers have a bunch of games, like more games than the other teams around them. So if you look at point
Right,
percentage, they're not in a playoff position.
right.
But they're fairly close. But I think that if you look at the division and what's happening around them, it also brings up the question, should the Flyers continue to play their games and think about their strategies day to day in a vacuum? Or, like, is there a world in which you have to start thinking about keeping pace with the Rangers to a lesser extent than the Caps, the Canes, and the Pens?
I mean, I think John's in that world now. I think he's the first thing you mentioned is not in his world right now. I can tell you this: the teams still don't really like each other. Like, I remember a few years ago, Chris Kreider told me, and I think I used it in the book, that the minute he gets off that train and he's in Philly, his whole attitude changes. And I think Kreider has gotten pretty scrappy with Flyers over the years, and vice versa. I think the Flyers and Rangers, they're still close enough. Their alumni are very cordial, like we saw at the Winter Classic. The alumni are cordial, but I don't think the players are. So I think there's that, but I do think they're going to the Flyers are still going to attack this game like, hey, we beat the Rangers, we're showing them something. So I still think they're working under that premise. And the other thing is about the Thanksgiving, U.S. Thanksgiving, it's really the 20-game mark because it used to be that way. But now with the way the schedule is starting later, you're not going to get 20 games out of every team by U.S. Thanksgiving.
That is also a fair point. Yeah, I do think, being competitive is being competitive, right?
Right.
And so you can't help but pay attention to what's happening with the teams around you. But I do think that, this Flyers team is just going to try and stay focused on what they're doing from game to game and not really worry about the standings and kind of let the chips fall where they may, at least for the time being. I think, maybe, 15 games from now, if they're still competitive, I think, sure, they can start talking about that.
Players look at the standings. They do.
That's what I'm saying. They're looking at it, but and as far as, actual, like, saying stuff out loud about it.
Well, all right.
I think
Yeah, they're not going to say anything out loud. But again, does Travis Konecny want to win and prove everybody wrong? Or does he want to do the right thing by the organization and help the rebuild? No, he wants to win. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's how a lot of those players are going to be, most of them.
Yeah, that is also fair. All right. We are going to switch gears and talk about the Phantoms, who had a fantastic couple of games, and we will do that coming up next. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun you'll have. My favorite part of the Game Time app is that it's great for getting notified about those last-minute tickets and flash deals, and you can get that all-important view from your seat. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It is the place to find a last-minute seat. Also, the tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through emails. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We will be having a mailbag on tomorrow's show, like I said. So email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, send us a DM on Twitter, or comment over on YouTube to get your questions answered. We are going to talk about the Phantoms now. Just a quick note, there is one game tonight against the Toronto Marlies as part of this week, but we wanted to make sure to get this conversation in this week, and this was the time to do it. Very excited for Victor Mete. He's going to get to see his new kid for the first time in 3 weeks. Man,
Yeah,
life
great.
of the minor leaguer, right?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, good to see that. That is part of the Phantoms news this week, that Mete is, of course, back down from the Flyers and checked into the weekend games. Elliot Denoye is still out. Mason Millman is still up with the Phantoms, but he was a scratch for both games.
That's a shame.
Again, it's just with Mete back in the lineup. And of course, Emil Andre is healthy now. So them's the breaks, kid.
Yeah.
But the Phantoms had 2 wins this weekend, which was fantastic. They won against the Laval Rocket 3-2 on Friday and beat the Belleville Senators 8-1. Yes, 8-1 on Saturday. That was a tremendous effort. But the big story, I think, for the Phantoms for these couple of games and the season so far is that top line that they have going right now with Tanner Lacynski, Olle Lycksell, and Samu Tuomaala. In those 2 games, 14 total points on that line. Just a tremendous series of games from those 2.
Yeah, it's definitely what fueled them. I started looking in some big numbers. So Lycksell is playing over 17 minutes a game, and he's getting 59% of his shots on goal.
Mm-hmm.
And you pointed out he's 6th in the league in scoring.
Yep.
This proves to me
Not in scoring, but in goals.
Okay. This pretty much proves to me that he's not getting called up. Like, they've just decided, I think, at the Flyers level that we gave him a few tries, he didn't work out, and maybe Lycksell's going to have to outweight the coach, or something's going to have to change, because he can't be doing much better than this, honestly. So that's one thing. That's just an
Yeah, he had 10 shots on goal between the 2 games, 2 goals and 2 assists.
Yeah, I mean, he can't be doing any better. So there's that. I look at Tanner Lacynski, and so he's averaging 18:43 of ice time, which is a lot. Over 3 minutes of power play, over 2:47 of shorthanded time, 51% shots on goal, 52% faceoffs, 50.54 hits. So half a hit a game. Tell me now, this version of Tanner Lacynski can't do what Ryan Poehling's doing for the Flyers.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, because if you looked at the preseason, Ryan Poehling absolutely stood out more than Tanner Lacynski. So if you go by camp and the preseason, right, I think it was the right decision ultimately.
Sure, I do too.
And you just have to kind of look at it now, and as the season progresses, I think they're going to want to see a little bit more of this from Tanner Lacynski over just a longer period of time before they're going to think about it. Just because, Lacynski was out for a little bit with the illness and came back. And so I think they just need a little bit more time with him. But what a weekend, man. 3 goals, 2 assists, 7 shots on goal total. Just a tremendous effort. And if you look at that top line with Lycksell, Tuomaala, Lacynski, then you add Emil Andre at the point and Cooper Marody. There's your top power play unit. Right. And they looked so good out there for huge stretches of the power play.
Yeah, no, it really has an impact. Now, with Tuomaala, it's interesting. They are being careful with him. So of his 14:42 ice time, 3:14 is power play. So he's just over 10 minutes of even strength time. So that tells you that, they want him out there, but not too much because of his two-way game that needs work.
Right.
But here's the other part, though. Like, he is doing 0.71 hits per game, so even more than Lacynski, which surprised me. And he has 59% of his shots on goal, which is really high. So he's maximizing his time on the ice, but at some point, they do need to give him more ice time.
I think that's fair. He had a goal and 4 assists over these 2 games. And again, that line is just clicking. So it was just kind of a matter of time there for him.
54%. Sorry, I couldn't read my writing. Shots on goal, which is still really good.
Yeah, 8 shots on goal in those 2 games. And, again, you added all that up, that the power play was 50% for the weekend for the Phantoms, in those 2 games. Again, it's only 2 games, but you look at how that's built on what they had done before and how these guys had played separate, and now they're back together on this line. And it's like a rising tide lifts all ships kind of a thing here.
It will on that team, but my basic point here is going to be that when the Flyers aren't winning 5 in a row, again, can one of these guys not replace Nick Delorier? Can one of these guys not replace Garnet Hathaway? Do these guys need to play every game? And even Ryan Poehling, I mean, does he have to play every game? Or is he even at this point even better than Lacynski? Like, at some point that argument may come up. That's what I want to start looking at, because again, that's an area on the Flyers that could definitely benefit from improvement. I understand that there's a mentoring factor, but like I said, they can mentor in the locker room too. But at some point, they're going to have players that could do that. Now, again, they'll use the excuse with Lycksell, well, hey, we don't want him to be on the 4th line. He's got to be on the 3rd. Okay, but that one doesn't work for Lacynski. Lacynski's a 4th line guy.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's the one of those 3 that you could call up and legitimately have a spot for him right now that would make sense for his game and make sense for the Flyers. I think that is absolutely on point there. It's just that there just isn't the space or the opportunity. And again, with the Flyers winning, any team, it's not just the Flyers, any team who's winning 5 games in a row is reluctant to make
No, and
change.
that's fine. But they did have a period before they were winning 5 in a row. They did, and they're going to have time after they're done winning however many they win in a row. That's just the way it is. It's going to happen.
Right, and between now and then or whenever that is, hopefully it never happens, but, things being what they are, the Flyers aren't
It's just
gonna
a normal
win
hockey
forever.
season. It's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. That gives these guys on the Phantoms more time to build up their reputations
Yes.
and, keep piling on the points, keep playing well, and they should get their opportunities. That's how this works.
That's how it's supposed to work. We hope it works that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got some more guys on the Phantoms to talk about. It's not just those 3,
No.
and we will do that coming up next.
Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your team, your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Locked On has launched its first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering all the top sports stories of the day with local experts from Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league, including Locked On NHL. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe, and you'll see all of those incredible shows. So, continuing our Phantoms Tuesday discussion, I want to talk a little bit about Ronnie Attard and Adam Ginning. They were back in the lineup separated this week, which, again, I just don't think that was a terrible thing for either of them. I think Ginning played really well. He's very good with Ethan Sampson, as we've mentioned previously, with Mete coming back in. Having him paired with Attard, I think, made a lot of sense as well. And, Attard had a really great weekend, scored a couple of goals in that 8-1 win. And I think that he's just taking advantage of these opportunities when he gets them. Both of those goals were really powerful shots, as he is wont to do. And I think that, the Phantoms blue line is looking real solid right now.
It is. It's unfortunate, but he may have to wait now until the trade deadline to get any NHL time, because Mark Stahl is going to come back. He's off the IR. And then you've got all these other situations going. And so it's kind of like, it's good and it's bad. Like, Attard's had some NHL games, and I felt played better up there, but I hope he doesn't have to wait until the trading deadline, but he might have to.
Yeah, I think so as well. Wade Allison got his second goal of the season on Saturday. That was good to see. He's also solidly back on that second line. He had been demoted for a little bit. I think it was a really good wake-up call for him. He played really well, especially on Saturday. He was trying absolutely everything to get one, and he did. And so I think that he's really starting to settle back into his game and, just not playing sad. He's playing strong now. I don't know if that makes sense, but
he's like Patrick Swayze in the Youngblood movie. He's not Rob Lowe. He's not Rob Lowe, but he's the Patrick Swayze guy here.
Yeah, I think so as well. Emil Andre mentioned he scored on Saturday his first goal of the season. It was on the power play. He also played really well defensively in that game. In particular, he chased down a couple of potential breakaways
He's got
that
good
didn't.
speed, man.
Yeah, so that was really good to see, and, now that he's got one, and is part of that strong power play unit, I'm looking forward to seeing what else he can do to
Now you're getting
quarterback that
greedy. Now
unit.
you're like, give me more. But he's capable.
Listen, I think he can, that's the thing, is, like, I think he is absolutely capable. I think Zayd Wisdom, he's on the 4th line, but he was in both games, and I think that's
Right?
really, what we just have to see right now is let him play consistently, and eventually he will get there, but, yeah, I think that it was a really good couple of games for a lot of the Flyers' top prospects, and it's really good to see.
It is good to see. I like to see these guys getting better roles, and I like to see them getting the time. So, from that perspective, there a lot is going right with Lehigh. I still want to see him do better. I want to see still even more involvement. Like you can see that that top line really fueled the weekend, and especially Lazinski. And I want to see more guys kicking in that way. But that's good. I mean, at least these are their top guys doing it. So I wish Millman could have gotten in there a game because I think he's played well. But again, he just seems like he's a guy on the outs, like a spare part. And, you know, that's too bad. I still think there's something there, a little something.
Right, I think, like, the one area that the Phantoms really need to work on is staying out of the penalty box.
Yeah, that's still an
Friday's game against Laval, Laval had 9 power play
issue.
chances in that game, which is way too many. Now, there was, like, an incident that caused 3 misconducts. So Wade Allison, Garrett Wilson, and Rhett Gardner all had misconducts as a result of this one
A lot of
incident.
misconduct, though.
Yeah, yeah, well, Rhett Gardner kinda ran into their goalie, and it wasn't great, but in the melee that ensued, 3 of those 3 guys got misconducts. Laval gets a 5-minute major out of it and scores twice, on the course of that major penalty. It was a 6-on-4 because they pulled the goalie.
Okay.
So, um, it wasn't just a regular power play, and then at the end of the game, Lappy got a bench minor for abuse of officials because he was upset by the whole thing. So, it was quite
Like
an
almost his
ending.
home crowd,
I
he
know.
was feeling it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite an ending to that game, I'll tell you. But, yeah, so I do think they need to stay out of the box, and they will probably tell you that's the one thing they need to work on the most too. It's not just, me saying that as well. But, yeah, again, I think, having the Phantoms be successful was something we talked about preseason that was very
Yes.
important to the rebuild and to the organization, and so far, uh, they're not, high in the standings right now, and they had a little bit of a rough start, but if things keep going the way that they are right now, I think they could end up in a really good position.
Yeah, it's possible. They have the talent. I say they have had partial success. I still need to see more.
All right, that will do it for today's show. Of course, we will be back tomorrow, gonna preview the game against the Islanders, which I will be attending in person. Looking forward to that as well. And we'll have that mailbag. So, as a reminder, you can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, comment over on YouTube, or send us a message over Twitter. I am Rachel. I am on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.